on Facebook.
Real Country is 550 AM WAME, 92.9 W225BD, Statesville.
Live from the Randy Marion Studios on Signal Hill in Statesville, this is the Sports Recap Show with Brian Suarez, Harry Nostrand, and Mark Covert.
And a good Tuesday evening out there in Radioland. Welcome to the Sports Recap Show here on 92.9 WAME. Brought to you by our friends at the Charlotte Checkers. I am Harry the Mender Nostrand, joined by my good buds and cohorts, Brian the Professor Suarez, no rookie, Mark Covert, who is, let's just say, grilling brats today. And and on the board, our trusty engineer, Bryson the Commander Davis, which, Bryson, you're going to have to throw some moves in here today since it's just Brian and I.
That's right. We'll keep the ship floating.
You think the rookie's listening?
I mean, maybe.
You saw my comment, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to play hurt.
You got to play hurt sometimes. Yeah. Rook's not feeling good. Poor guy's got to.
Anthony.
Listen, I get it. Yeah, he could have had his flu game today.
He's
you never
just
know.
Not, Oh, that's true. He could. Oh man,
could have had his
he
flu
missed
game.
it. Yeah.
But it's all right. We will carry on and give you the sports recap show's full power and strength with myself and Brian and Bryson
and a phone-in guest too.
Yeah, and we will have a phone-in guest. That's right. And honestly, we have to talk real quick. I just want to say, I did say the show is brought to you by our friends of the Charlotte Checkers, and we had TJ Shalot introduce us as he always does. It'll be the last time to be able to hear that voice if you're a Checkers fan, because unfortunately the Checkers did fall last night.
That's right.
And Brian and I were at the game, and we'll talk about it a little bit.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it with TJ too.
That's right. We'll get TJ on the air.
Bottom of the hour. We'll get him on the air.
That's
we'll talk to him about it.
That's right. But as always, we're gonna get this show rocking and rolling with trivia, birthdays, and facts.
All right. So
what you got, Brian?
This is going to relate to a birthday, and and this will be a trivia question too.
In 1492,
no.
Columbus sailed the ocean.
So listen
blue.
to this. What is the oldest, most popular, and all-time best-selling basketball shoe? And 60% of all Americans own or have owned a pair of these.
I mean, I naturally want to say it's a Converse. Is it?
What kind of Converse?
The Chuck Taylors.
Bingo!
Yep.
And you know why I bring that up?
Because it's Chuck Taylor's birthday.
It's Chuck Taylor's birthday.
How about
That's
that?
right. Chuck Taylor was born in 1901. He was a professional basketball player around 1921 or 22. He decided that they should design a better basketball shoe, and he went to work for Converse All-Stars, and he designed the Chuck Taylors.
It's crazy how they were designed as basketball shoes, and they literally became a fashion statement piece.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never today, like even in high school when I played basketball, from functional standpoint, I would never wear them because I'd be afraid to roll my ankle and break my ankle every chance I got. But hey, listen, everybody wore them.
When I played high school basketball in the late 70s, early 80s, our high school bought us a pair of basketball shoes, and guess what they were?
Chuck Taylors.
Chuck Taylors, you betcha.
Yeah, they're the team shoes.
You betcha.
I mean, I remember, like, you see Magic Johnson wearing them playing. I mean, all these guys.
Yeah.
I think Larry Bird, too. I mean, it was the shoe back in the day. It was this
Chucks.
It was the Jordan before the Jordan. Before the Air Max, the Nikes.
Yeah.
So,
okay, are you a member of this 60% who own or have owned a pair of Chucks?
I am not. Believe it or not.
I've never had any.
See, I am.
Riley's got some. She's
really?
got some. Yeah, she really does.
I've never owned, whether it's for fashion or sports. I've never owned. I've had Converse, just not Chuck Taylors.
I bet you there are a lot of people out there listening that have either owned a pair or currently own a pair.
Yeah. Well, heck, if 60% of the population, that says a good chance. 6 out of 10.
All right, a couple other birthdays. JJ Redick, current Lakers head coach,
Duke legend,
right? And then one other one, soccer star Lionel Messi.
Okay.
His birthday today.
How old is he? Like 44?
38.
Really? I didn't think he was that old.
I seen that earlier today.
Yep. Did not think he was that old.
All right.
Crazy.
And then a couple of things that happened on this day in sports, and we're going to get a trivia question with one of them. All right. So in 1992,
Columbus
Shaq O'Neal was the first pick of the Orlando Magic on this day in sports history. And in 1979, Ricky Henderson made his Major League Baseball debut.
R.I.P.
1,406 stolen bases. Here's the trivia question around Ricky Henderson. We all know that he is the all-time leader in stolen bases. Who is the highest ranking active player in career stolen bases?
Active?
Active.
Oh, man. Man, Brian, you got to give me a hint here.
Oh, shoot. I'm going to have to look this up because I'm not even sure who this person actually plays for.
God, that doesn't bode well. I mean,
Well, I forgot to write it down. I mean, I know the answer, but to this trivia question.
gosh. Stolen bases. I mean, can you give me a position maybe?
Right now he plays for the New York Mets. He plays the outfield for the New York Mets.
It is not Juan Soto.
No, it's not Juan Soto.
Okay. Gosh.
Just take a guess. It's New York Mets. You'll know this guy. He also played for the Pirates at some point, and I believe he also played for the Diamondbacks for a while.
Is it oh God.
No, it's not him.
No. Oh, was he pretty good with the Pirates?
Yeah, he's had a pretty good career. He has played. Hold on a second. In his career, he's played 14 years. He's played 1,483 games with the Mets. Started out with the Pirates. Then played a little bit for Arizona, Miami, and Oakland, and then now with the Mets for the last 4 years.
Dude, I don't.
And I will give it to you real quick.
You're gonna have to because I mean,
Starling Marte,
yeah, I would
358.
Oh, that's
Right?
it,
Yeah, and that's 105th.
and that's the active leader.
That's the active leader. So then I looked up the other two because I'm like, man, that's like 105th.
Good Lord.
He's like eight stolen bases from cracking the top 100. Okay. The next highest active player at 145th is Jose Altuve
So I was thinking Altuve, but I didn't.
with 321 stolen bases. He's 37 behind Marte. Wow. And then the next active player after Altuve at 171st is Trey Turner at 298 stolen bases.
I was wondering where Mike Trout is in there because he's probably up there, but I mean, the guy's also hurt all the time.
Yeah. So anyway, the stolen bases kind of gone by the wayside. It's making a comeback, a little bit of a comeback, right?
A little bit.
You know, but yeah. So there's your highest ranking active player career stolen bases, Starling Marte.
That's a
with
good one. You got another?
358.
You got
That's
another?
all I got for tonight, Harry.
All right, I got one.
All right, good.
All right. With football camps and all that talk getting going, I thought this was a good question to ask, or I guess a couple questions really. Can you tell me the top 5 receivers in the NFL in the 2000s just based off total yards?
Larry Fitzgerald.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Dang.
Total yards.
Total yards. Okay.
So and this was off the NFL's Facebook page.
Wow.
Top 5 receivers of the 2000s. Top 5 receivers of the 2000s, and it's literally just based off yards.
Antonio Brown.
No, you got to go early 2000s.
I'm drawing a blank.
Des Bryant. I don't know.
I'll give you number 5. Marvin Harrison
Okay.
with 10,439 yards.
This would be the rookie question.
I'm going to ask it next week too. I'm surprised. Like, come on, give me one name. Don't have to give me number 1. Give me one name.
Randy Moss.
Bingo. Number 2, 11,739 yards.
Who else would there?
I'll give you.
Michael Irvin.
I would have thought so, but no. I think he got most of his yards
Prior to 2000. See, I was trying to figure out if he was in that.
Nope.
era.
But I will tell you, there's someone on that list who played for that team that he played for.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint if you want.
I'm drawing a blank.
That's
Yeah,
my
you're
quarterback.
You're asking the wrong
That's
guy.
my quarterback. This guy also played for the 49ers.
Oh,
He's played for a lot of teams.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Terrell Owens.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Terrell
okay.
Owens,
All right.
11,644. That'd be number 3. Number 1 and number 4 are the toughest ones to me. You just want to go ahead and tell you?
Yeah, because
All right. Number 4 with 10,481 yards, which is about 50 yards or 40 yards more than Marvin Harrison. Derek Mason. Played for the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And number 1, all-time leading receiver of the 2000s, none other than Torrey Holt.
Ooh. Okay.
12,594 yards, almost 1,000 yards more than Randy Moss.
Wow.
Man.
So that was that. Okay, last question. Most sacks in NFL history before the age of 40.
Before the age of 40? Mark Gastineau.
Nope. That's a good one, though.
Oh, I thought he said Mark has to know.
No, he said Mark
We need
Gastineau.
to phone in Mark.
No,
If
New
he
York
would know.
Jets. Mark Gastineau. Wow. I couldn't. I had no idea.
Bryson, any guesses?
I have nothing.
All right. Most sacks in NFL history before the age of 40 belongs to none other than Reggie White.
Oh,
And here's the funny thing about that. He also has the most sacks before the age of 39, 38, 37, 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, 31, and 30.
Wow.
So he had the most sacks before the ages that I just listed.
wow.
Most sacks before the age of 28, Myles Garrett, and the age of 29. Who had the most sacks by the age of 22? That would be none other than Terrell Suggs.
Okay.
Yeah, Reggie White was dominant,
Denver
in case you didn't know.
Broncos. Yeah.
What was
The
it?
Minister
Defense
of
minister?
Defense.
Yeah, I was going to say the defense minister of defense.
Wow.
Dude could do it.
Is that it? That's all you got?
That's all I got.
I got one for you. This is a baseball question, so this is kind of out of my range. I'll give this to you. There's an MLB team that has had no player with 30 or more home runs in a season since 2004. Who are they?
Well, you said a team.
There's one team
Yeah, this is one team.
You said who are? Okay,
has
I
had
just wanna-
nobody hit 30 home runs since 2004.
Not a player with 30 plus homers since 04.
Tampa Bay Rays.
Nope.
Oh,
Since what year?
04. And this is post 04. So 04
Yeah.
was the last year this happened for this
and
team.
he means 2004, not 19.
Yeah, sorry. Baseball has been around a while,
Is
right?
it the Houston Astros?
Nope.
Man. Oh, how about the Minnesota Twins?
Nope. It's not them.
No, Torrey Hunter's definitely had 30. Well, maybe he hasn't. But Morneau and catcher there, Joe Mauer.
Yeah. Okay. Since 04. How about my team?
Nope. It's not the Brewers.
Darn.
It's not. Really kind of
Okay.
surprising.
I mean, this is what I want to say because the obvious answer to me is a team that used to smack a lot of home runs because of one guy, and that's the Giants with Barry Bonds. But I don't know if anyone's hit 30 since then.
That might be the
You
right
never
answer.
know.
I think that's the right answer.
The San Francisco
Yes,
Giants
it is.
in
Wait a minute.
2004.
Yeah. Wait a minute. It is. You know why? Because I just now remember that when they traded for Rafael Devers, they said the last person to hit 30 homers for the Giants
Barry
was
Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
He
That's
did
right.
it. He had
Yeah.
But I didn't know who-
45.
I should have got that.
But I was thinking
Yeah.
04. I'm like, surely he did it like had more than 30 like a couple years later than that. But
No.
because when he break the record in 04?
He had 45. So
No, so he didn't
yeah.
break
in
the record. that
04,
year.
but then he didn't after that.
I thought he surely had
yeah,
another
okay.
year since then.
Giants.
That's why I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's right. I saw that. Okay.
How about that?
Yep.
Good question.
I think.
I'm just not good enough for me. I'm
All
too
right.
smart.
So let's move on. Let's talk about the NBA Finals got done this week. The Thunder ended up beating the Pacers. But Harry, I'll let you talk about this a little bit. You and I kind of talked about it a little bit last night at the game. Let me start off with a couple of things. Number one, nobody expected 7 games in this series, right? We all talked about this, while we were sitting here, it was going to be 6, 5, right? There were some mostly 6s and 5s.
Yeah.
There were 0 7s
Mhm.
among anybody. So nobody expected it to go 7 games. Pacers played quite well and really showed themselves to be a really good team,
Yeah.
right? Hung in there with OKC. And if you think about it, it wasn't just us sitting here saying 5 or 6. If you read about it before it started, it was almost like a foregone conclusion of who was going to win, and not necessarily just who was going to win, but it was going to be like, it's going to be easy, right? Like the Pacers are not a match for the Oklahoma City Thunder. As a matter of fact, somebody that is not here, basically said that exact same thing,
Yeah.
right?
And I don't know if you remember what I said at the very beginning before the series started when we were making our predictions. I said, if Indiana wins game 1 on the road, they will win the series. Indiana won game 1 on the road. And Indiana, had they not blown a fourth quarter lead in game 5 or 4, this series ends in 6 in Indiana's favor.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you this right now, and I firmly believe this. Had Tyrese Halliburton not got hurt early in game 7, they win that game.
Right. That
Now here's the thing. At the end of the day, the better team probably won. The team that would carry the most momentum, the hottest team, probably didn't win.
right.
Because there was moments where, listen, both these teams throughout the playoffs had moments of what I would call weakness, where they just didn't look like championship caliber teams. But they rose to the occasion every time they needed to. Indiana had multiple comebacks and had a chance to win a lot of these series and games. At the end of the day, them losing Halliburton really, not so much as a scoring threat, but as a facilitator and that kind of that team engine, that cog that gets everyone going, really did hurt them in game 7. But you give a lot of credit to OKC because they did what a championship caliber team does, and they put their foot on the throat of Indiana and pressed the gas down. SGA looked really good. They had multiple guys step up in that game 7 win. TJ McConnell coming off the bench, I think he had like 14 points in the third quarter alone. I mean, he literally kept them in the game at that point.
Which you and I talked about this in the mid third quarter. I started watching a little bit, and it got really close. I think at one point it was like 5 points, right? And then I was getting tired, so I decided to listen to it rather than watch the rest of it. By the time I got all settled in and wanted to listen to it,
like 15 points.
It was like 84-68, and at that point it was like, okay, there's no reason to watch. And when we say the 5 points, it was like 65-60.
70. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it was right
close.
in there. So it was almost like what I didn't see evidently was a long OKC run of 10-0 or something.
Well, they went on the stretch at the end of the third quarter where they just weren't missing.
Yeah.
I mean, they were hitting shots, they were getting turnovers, and I think that's, again, going back to Halliburton being that kind of that veteran leader on the floor and that cog for the team. They lost a little bit of that focus. I mean, I think if I recall, Indiana had minimum of 8 turnovers in the third quarter alone.
Yeah, because when right towards the end of me watching it, they kept turning the ball over.
Yeah.
They make a bad pass and then just go out of bounds. It wasn't even like a forced turnover
or dribbling off their feet or something like that. I mean, it's just, there was just a lot of not knowing what to do. And listen, I'm not going to blame Rick Carlisle for that, because you lose your best player in game 7. That's a tough thing to overcome no matter what. But the team just didn't respond as well as you would hope from, again, a team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals last year.
Right.
It has championship aspirations. But listen, they proved that they are one of the dogs in the NBA. Like, regardless, I mean, congratulations to OKC, first championship for the franchise since they moved to Oklahoma from Seattle.
Yep.
Those fans absolutely deserve it. They've been through a lot. They were there when KD was there and saw him leave, Harden leave. I mean, Paul George. They've seen these guys come and go, and they've got a good group of homegrown talent now that just brought them a championship. But props to Indiana, because they really showed out and showed that they were a championship caliber team, and literally they're 1 quarter away from a championship. They had a bad fourth quarter. I can't remember if it was game 4 or 5 at this point. But they were up and just stopped doing what they were doing that got them there. And OKC again took advantage of the scenario and was able to win. And SGA, I mean, listen, cementing a little bit of his legacy right now. They start talking about dynasty with these sort of teams when they're young and they're going to be together for a little while.
Right.
It's a little early to talk about that, I think.
Now, funny you say that. So Adam Silver has been the NBA commissioner for 12 years. 9 different teams have won the NBA championship in those 9 years. So there's no dynasties in there in the last 12 years.
No.
Could they potentially become one? 100%.
Yes.
But again, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on that just until we start seeing what happens. I mean, listen, free agency is a thing. There's going to be teams wanting to pick this roster apart to get the guys, not even worried about the starters, the guys that come off the bench with that championship caliber experience that are able to play defense and score points for you. So they got to survive free agency. They got to survive injuries. I mean, and by the way, big prayers up for Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, that's awful. Tearing your Achilles in game 7.
Yep. Maybe out for the whole next season.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, Jason Tatum with the Celtics did something very similar in game 6 of their series with the Knicks. the guy from Milwaukee, Damian Lillard, another guy that tore his Achilles this year.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing that's happened this year. I'm not really sure how to explain it other than just freak accidents, but I mean, hope all those guys bounce back well. But yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised if both these teams are right in the thick of it again next year.
All right. One real quick about one trade. Kevin Durant was traded to the Houston Rockets. I'm not a big NBA fan, but it seems to me like Durant has been to a bunch of teams, which I was surprised. The Rockets will be his 4th team since 18-19, which is not as many as I thought, but it almost seems like he's getting to where he's just starting to bounce around. Like, is he not a good teammate, just not a good team player? I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I don't know either, because the thing is he's an extreme talent, but the thing with Durant, I do think there's another way to say this, and I'm not speaking from experience, obviously, because I've never met the guy and I don't know. I don't talk to his teammates. It just seems like there's a chance that he's a little bit of a head case. I mean,
bouncing around.
Yeah, bouncing around, just not satisfied, gets complacent, doesn't like where he's at, and maybe doesn't like the style of ball that's being played. I mean, listen, you went to a team that should have 100% been in the thick of it for the NBA Finals. That Phoenix Suns teams with Booker and him just by themselves should be a contender. They never even came close to that. That never even came close to fruition. So, listen. Speaking of trades too, I saw just as the show was starting. So the Celtics yesterday traded Drew Holiday. Unfortunately, I was a big Drew Holiday fan. He's part of the championship team last year. And then just before the show started, there's a 3-way trade with the Celtics, the Hawks, and the Nets, where the Celtics are sending Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta. So 2 intricate parts. I mean, I say intricate. Porzingis was obviously hurt during the championship series, but big part of that championship run between him and Drew Holiday are both gone.
They're both gone.
So interesting to see what happens. That's the thing. That's the name of the game in the NBA. And I talked about this earlier this year up in Boston. I don't know how. There was always going to be a question how they kept that championship squad together, because there was just so much money.
Yep.
And these are the consequences.
Yeah.
So
you know what I think is interesting? And it's not on the outline, but I want to throw this out there a little bit. It seems like in basketball, there's a huge amount of movement among all the players.
Yeah.
And then you look at, obviously, Bryson and I are big hockey fans here. You know a little bit about it. It seems to me like hockey is the sport where there's the least movement by the players among the teams. Like, they get to a spot and then they seem to stay there. And what I'm bringing this up too is, so Panthers have 3 very good players who are free agents, and all 3 of them have expressed the intent that I'd like to stay. One of them being Brad Marchand, who was just there for like
a hot second.
2 months, right?
Yeah.
Came in March,
but won a Stanley Cup.
But now is saying, I want to stay here. Like, I really like it. And I just think it's weird that hockey is a sport where most of these guys are not moving around anywhere near as much. In basketball, it appears like.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of trades and there's a lot of free agency movement.
I would say hockey and NFL. I mean, think about it, because to me in the NFL, there's obviously some free agent signings, but you don't see a whole lot of big trades anymore. Like, you don't see, like, maybe some small trades here and there.
Yeah.
But like most of your guys, obviously if there's a contract up, they look at free agency options. But yeah, hockey and football, definitely. I mean, baseball and basketball, it's a lot.
I feel like in the NBA, like growing up, like I looked at this Kevin Durant headline and like barely even like batted an eye at it, because I'm like, this has been the story for my entire life, watching Kevin Durant's career. Every year you wake up and he's playing for somebody else, and this is why all my buddies who would be really big into watching basketball, following the NBA, they're following players and not teams. I feel like that is more the trend. When you look at it from a fan's point of view, I just picked that up from people, being at school. I like this player and I like this player. I don't really like the Suns, but I like Kevin Durant, or what have you.
Yeah. Or I'm rooting for the team because my guy's on that team.
Exactly. And then so like when these guys hop around, I know there's a guy out there. He's a huge Kevin Durant fan. So he will trade in his son's jersey and buy a Rockets jersey now because that's Kevin Durant's team. Me, as a Carolina Hurricanes fan, I will never pick up. I loved Mikko Rantanen for like the 2 days he was with us. I will never buy or I will never pull for the Dallas Stars specifically because Mikko Rantanen plays for him. Once he's gone, he's gone. And I think that's just it's the state of the two sports. It's the way that they're looked at, the style of play has a lot to do with that,
Yeah.
and just the state of the game overall. And
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, I'm older than both of y'all, and back in my day, there weren't a lot of trades. There was like to start with, free agency was just kind of like at the beginning of it starting. But like Harry, I bet if you talk to your dad, he will be the same way like me. Like there were not a whole lot of trades.
Yeah.
And then the trades that were made though were like blockbuster
exactly,
trades.
they were a huge deal.
It was
now
like
nobody
Nolan
cares.
Ryan just got traded, or he signed as a free agent. He was with the Angels and he signed with the Astros, and you're like, oh my God. Now that kind of stuff is a common occurrence.
Yeah,
And it's just not that surprising anymore.
No.
Agreed.
All right. So real quick before we go to commercial break, let's talk a little bit about some MLB stuff. You talked about it. Cal Raleigh, catcher for the Seattle Mariners, is having a heck of a year. Right now, he's got 32 home runs and 68 RBIs in 76 games.
Which is crazy. I mean, he's hitting at a heck of a pace right now.
This is the most home runs by a catcher before the All-Star break. It's also the most home runs by a switch hitter before the All-Star break.
That part surprises me.
Only 8 players have hit 30 or more home runs in the first 75 games in Major League Baseball history. Last time it happened, 2001, Barry Bonds and Luis Gonzalez both did it. The other thing about Raleigh that I find funny,
Gonzo ended up winning the World Series that year.
That's right. I think he hit 51 home runs that year too. Here's the other thing about Raleigh, and this is very interesting. Last year he played in 153 games. He hit 34 homers last year for the whole year. He's already got 32.
And let me tell you, as someone who went to a Seattle game last year up there, dude is a fan favorite.
He's a really good catcher. He's one of the best. So we'll see. He could be the home run king.
That would be interesting to see catcher do it, honestly.
Now, that's the other thing we need to figure out, and we'll need to go back and look. When is the last time a catcher led Major League Baseball in home runs?
I'm going to look it up right now.
We'll have to look that up. All right, so real quick, while you're doing that, Shohei Ohtani has started to pitch. Will he return to his two-way dominance? I have my doubts about this, Harry.
By the way, I have a guess. I haven't finished Googling yet, but my guess is it was Pudge.
Ooh, could be. Yep. All right. Hey, so Shohei Ohtani, I have my doubts about him returning to his two-way dominance. One of the things I read is the Dodgers are going to be real careful on his offense right now. Definitely less base running. You will not see him steal as many bases. The other thing I read is they may end up not ramping him up the whole year, and he may just be like an opener and pitch only 1 or 2 innings when he pitches.
And that's all they probably need. They don't need him to pitch right now. They don't. I mean, yes, if you can slowly get him back into it, it's probably a good thing. But I think listen, you don't have to rush him back. You let the dude hit, let him throw a little bit, and get him ready for the playoffs. That's literally all I'm thinking of on the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think they'll be very cautious with him, as this is his second Tommy John surgery too. So I think they're going to be very, very careful about this.
But like most Tommy John surgeries, the dude's throwing harder after the surgery than he was before.
Yeah, which is very interesting.
Do you have? So you asked about the catcher. Last time a catcher led the league.
Yes,
would have been my second guess. Who do you think it is?
Carlton Fisk.
You're close. 1972. Johnny Bench.
Johnny Bench, who actually Raleigh broke his record for most home runs before the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
So all right.
Big things happening for Raleigh.
Oh, yeah. MLB power rankings. I looked at at MLB.com, CBS, and Fox. Pretty much the top 5 are pretty close to the same. Either 1 and 2 is either Detroit or the Dodgers.
Who'd have thought you'd say Detroit?
Yeah, I know. Is that not amazing?
Who's their manager? AJ Hinch.
AJ Hinch.
Love it.
Houston Astros. Remember, he brought a lot of young players along right there.
I love it.
All right. And then the last 3 are pretty much a mixture of the Chicago Cubs, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the New York Mets. Probably all right.
Yeah. The NL is well represented.
Yep. It certainly is.
Because you'd say the Phillies, the Cubs, the Dodgers.
Yep.
The Mets.
Yeah.
Oof. Yes. AL has not been great this year.
No. So, all right, we're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to get TJ Shalott, voice of the Charlotte Checkers, on the line, and we're going to talk some Charlotte Checkers hockey. We'll recap the game last night. We'll talk about the playoffs, and we'll talk about the season, as last night it ended, unfortunately.
Ryan Scott's at Randy Marion Chevy in Statesville, and what are you doing now?
I tell you, we got the deals going on. Typical Randy Marion fashion. King of Price. 2024 brand new Chevrolet Malibu LT starting at $19,988. 19,988, brand new, not used. You come pick the color today. Randy Marion Chevrolet Statesville, right here on I-40. Look for the spinning car, folks, because that's where the deals are.
At Piedmont Healthcare, we believe in more than just treating patients. We're committed to understanding and addressing the unique needs facing our community. Being a physician-owned network means that we're not just healthcare providers. We're your neighbors, your friends, and your partners in health. With strong ties to local communities, we're able to offer personalized care that truly understands your needs. When you choose Piedmont Healthcare, you're not just choosing healthcare, you're choosing to be part of a community that cares. If you're ready to experience the difference for yourself, call our new patient hotline at 833-PHC for you. That's 833-742-4968. Or you can just request an appointment online, phcappointments.com.
Looking to add some life to your yard or a splash of color to your porch? Well, swing on by Lowry's in Harmony, your local Green Thumb headquarters. We've got garden plants of all kinds, flowers blooming in every shade, premium potting soils for those roots to thrive, and yard wind spinners to keep things moving in style. Whether you're growing your own veggies, decorating your patio, or just trying to impress the neighbors, Lowry's has what your garden's been dreaming of. Come dig in. We're rooted in downtown Harmony and blooming with possibilities. PT Marvels is a unique event venue hosting birthday parties, ghillie ball, magic shows, family game nights, private events, and more. PT Marvels is moving to the perfect venue to host all of your fun-filled gatherings. The new address is 316 Sharon School Road, right here in Statesville. Join them soon at the new location and see why we love the Murder by Magic Mystery Dinner Night. The calendar is open, and you can make your reservations now by visiting ptmarvels.com. Stay connected with PT Marvels by visiting them on Facebook.
Who knew politics could actually be fun? Join Senator Vicky Sawyer every Friday at 11 a.m. for your weekly dose of Raleigh gossip, legislation drama, and all the things you never knew you cared about. What's the Capitol buzzing about this week? How does this weird law affect you? Why is everyone talking about this? It's like your favorite political show, but with less stress and more laughs. So grab your coffee and tune in, because it's going to be a good time.
Come experience Marion Furniture Company in downtown Marion. They are McDowell County's exclusive Kincaid and Flex Steel gallery. But that's not all. Their custom design service features thousands of fabrics and finishing choices. So if you're looking to update or refurnish your home, Marion Furniture Company is a great place to start. Give them a call at 559-2700 or visit them in person at 21 West Court Street in downtown Marion. Marion Furniture Company.
92.9 WAME is getting ready for back to school, and we need your help to make a difference. We're giving away 300 backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids who need a strong start this school year. Join us on Wednesday, August 7th from 3 to 6 p.m. at Yokefellow Ministries in Statesville. Whether you're a business, church, civic group, or just someone who cares, you can help. Call us today at 704-872-0550. And be part of something truly special. Let's lift up our kids and our community together.
Real Country is 550 AM WAME, 92.9 W225BD, Statesville.
And welcome back to the Sports Recap Show here on 92.9 WAME. Brought to you by our friends at the Charlotte Checkers. I am Harry, the Menu Nostrand, joined by my good buddies and cohorts, Brian the Professor Suarez, and the Commander, Bryson Davis. I mentioned our good friends at the Charlotte Checkers, who unfortunately, Brian, you and I were there last night, Game 6 of the Calder Cup Finals. They take Game 5 to avoid elimination to get a chance to come home and keep competing, and they come up a little bit short last night, unfortunately. And tough loss, tough way to end the season. But you know what? What we're going to talk about, and we're going to bring on a really special guest, none other than the voice of the Charlotte Checkers. That's TJ Shalott. And he'll talk about the game with us as well. But Brian, you can't be more proud of these guys.
Oh, no. Let's think about this for a second. You get to the last game of the year. Obviously, you want to win, right? But you had a darn good season if you get to the last game of the year.
Yeah, 100%. And TJ, first of all, congratulations on a heck of a season, buddy. You're an intricate part of that. Listen, it had to be a lot of fun for you, and we want to congratulate you, being a part of that. But, give us your broad strokes of the season and the Calder Cup Finals.
Yeah, broad strokes, I don't think anyone really expected this team to be in the Calder Cup finals this year, not in a division with the two-time defending Calder Cup champion Hershey Bears lurking, and a team that had some big acquisitions in the offseason and really didn't have a lot of blue chip prospects from the Florida Panthers because they've been buyers at the trade deadline here the last handful of years. But, this team fought through some adversity early on, losing their top scorers in Aiden McDonough and Ryan McAllister, losing one of their top defensemen, Mitch Van de Stompel, losing their captain, Zach Dalpe. All of those guys done for the year sometime around the November, December time frame. And the team played, half a year without him, and they had to kind of sew everything together. They found a goalie on the trade deadline with Capo Kakinen, who was fantastic for this team all year that he played and was just such a calming influence. They found guys out of college like Brett Chorsky, and they signed guys from overseas like C.J. Smith, and of course got Jesse Puljujarvi after the Pittsburgh Penguins opted to terminate his contract. So, my hat's off to this team that consistently, we've talked about it on this radio station, especially, the next man up mentality, and that's just what this team was all year. And they went far and above my expectations, to sweep the two-time defending Calder Cup champion Bears, to sweep the best team in the Eastern Conference in Laval, and put up a fight against a very, very good Abbotsford team in the Calder Cup finals. I'm so proud of the way they played, the way they were coached, and how they handled themselves on the ice.
Yeah, and TJ, I mean, you, Brian, and Bryson, you guys follow much closer than I do. And as a casual fan, I mean, obviously very happy for them. There was something about this team, it seemed like, and it was a level of grittiness that maybe you hadn't seen in years prior. I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like this team had a lot of fight in them.
They did, yeah. And this was a team that was built with depth in mind. If you look at the top scorers during the regular season and the playoffs, you're not going to find a Charlotte Checkers. You got to go down on that list before you see your first Charlotte Checker, because it was everybody contributing. And that's because they did play a grinded out style. Every given night, you never know who's going to be the hero. Certainly there were guys like John Leonard, who had a fantastic season, both in the regular season and the playoffs. You talk about some of the other guys like Mike Benning, who had a great year, and Justin Sorta. Sure, there were certainly guys that stuck out, but the way they played, their physical aspect, the way they would grind games out, they played in so many one goal games throughout the year. It's just a team that was built for more of a game in the trenches, so to speak, rather than that fancy razzle dazzle flair. And, my hat's off to the Abbotsford Canucks, because they took that style of game and threw it right back at the Checkers, and Charlotte just couldn't quite match them.
Well, hey, talk a little bit about the playoffs, because think about what happened here. We started off winning 2 games in Providence, come back home for 3, lost the next 2 games, faced elimination in Game 5, held the Bruins to 8 shots on goal in Game 5, the lowest, I think, in the AHL in several years, playoff or regular season game, and then basically swept Hershey, swept Laval, and then faced some adversity against Abbotsford as they lost the first game, won the second. And the loss of the first game, there was a unique sign last night that was showed up there on the Jumbotron that said,
we really won
game 1, right? So faced some adversity after game 1, came back in game 2 and won, traveled to Abbotsford all the way across the country. Again, adversity, lose game 3, lose game 4, and then come back in game 5 and score in overtime to send it back to Charlotte.
Yeah, and I think they got a taste of that adversity early, like you mentioned. When you go up 2-0 on Providence, and then all of a sudden, you drop 2 games, and again, the Checkers were on the brink of elimination in just the second round of the playoffs. They could have been ousted months ago, but they came out, like you mentioned, held them to 8 shots on goal, which was the fewest since 2015 in an AHL game, fewest since 2010 in an AHL playoff game. And that really kind of started their dominance there over the Eastern Conference. Like you said, they run through Hershey, they run through Laval, and then they meet with a little bit of adversity against Abbotsford. But, this is a series where they can hang their heads high. It's not like they got completely stomped. There was only 1 game which they lost by more than 1 goal. That was the 6-1 loss on Game 3 against the Abbotsford Canucks. And even that, probably a little bit closer than the score dictates, with a couple of empty netters in there. And it's just, that's exactly what you want your team to do during the playoffs, and to just constantly put up a fight. And Charlotte just didn't get a lot of bounces. They got one bounce, and that was the game winner in Game 5. I should say they got two bounces as it ricocheted off two defensemen and then went in. But there was other bounces they didn't get. They didn't get the that controversial no goal in Game 1. Which to this day I still agree it was to the letter of the law. That was the correct call. However, that's deflating when a team thinks that they won, and then you've got to sit there and the referee's got to figure it out. It's tough to kind of swallow that, and then hoist yourself back up and get out there and try and win it again. And then when you do lose it, that's demoralizing. That's tough on a team. And the Checkers, they fought that off. They managed to get within one, and it was a great season. Like I said, I think they shattered all expectations, especially considering what they went through during the regular season. I mean, I was looking at last night's roster, and just at certain times throughout the game, I mean, there would be one guy that was on that team that was on the roster back in October when we started the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Chorsky's out there. He wasn't here. CJ Smith wasn't here. Puljujarvi wasn't here. Capo Kakinen wasn't here. Eamon Powell wasn't here. I mean, there's just only, so much you can do throughout the course of a season to put the best team you possibly can on the ice. And my hat is off to the Charlotte Checkers organization, the Florida Panthers organization, for getting this team as far as they went.
Yeah, and you got to, one thing, we talked about this early in the year, with the new ownership group. This was a heck of a way to kind of kick that off, to get this team to the Calder Cup. It just, last night, Brian and I were sitting there watching the game, and, TJ, obviously you have a unique view for these games. There was just really some things that just needed to break, and you talk about bounces, some things that just needed to break Charlotte's way. I mean, they went up 2-0 in the first period, and then Abbotsford, as a true championship team does, they didn't panic. They slowly played their game and got back into it. But, watching the Checkers not being able to win some key faceoffs, down deep in their territory, some issues, with Chris Pass and whatnot. It just, there was a level last night of just, and I think what I said to Brian was early. It seemed like they had a game plan very early and executed it very well.
And structure is what you said
structure.
Too.
Yeah. And then as the game went on, I don't know if it was I don't know. I don't know how it is in hockey. I guess I shouldn't say what I think it is, but it just seemed like they got away from some of the things they did well early, or Abbotsford forced their hand out of it. I'm not sure which, but either way, you got to be. You said it. We'll say it. Extremely proud of this team.
Yeah, 1,000%. And look, there were certain things that I feel the Checkers kept doing wrong in this series, and I use that term lightly because, again, I've never played at the highest level. I've never coached at the highest level. So, I'm just a broadcaster. I can't sit here and what I say is just an opinion and just a thought. But there was a couple of errors and a couple of flaws that I saw throughout this entire season. They tended to leave the back door open. And, after the third or fourth backdoor goal, you think that they would have been keyed in on that to watch the man sneaking in. But it seemed like they just could not quite figure that out and how to stop that. I think they also kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit when they took the lead, and that came back to bite them in several games. When you look across the 6 games that they played, 4 of the 6 games, the Checkers ended up getting the game's first goal, and they would lose 3 of those 4 games. It's just one of those scenarios where, they had a 2-goal lead last night, and we even said it on the broadcast. We said, look, you're back at home. You've got all the momentum after the way Game 5 ended. You have the chance to force a Game 7 coming up on Wednesday night. You got to get the game's first goal. You'd like to get it early. And they did that. And we also said, if you're going to get one, try to get out to a multiple goal lead. They did that. And our other key was, okay, if you can execute that properly, you've got to shut down Abbotsford. And the Checkers just could not do it. Special teams was definitely left a lot to be wanted in this series, both on the power play, which had a rough postseason to begin with, but their penalty kill, which was the top in the American Hockey League during the regular season and was so good through the Eastern Conference portion of their playoff run, just didn't come to play in this series. And it just seemed like a lot of those things kind of added up and kind of was their downfall at the end of it all. Those leaving those backdoor goals open and not learning from that, the special teams not coming to play, especially when, the Checkers had a couple of opportunities there late when they were down a goal on the power play, golden opportunity to try and tie that game, and they didn't even get any shots on goal.
Well,
so those things hurt.
Hey, TJ, speaking of the power play, one of the things I think that did happen during the playoffs that I noticed, and especially last night, Harry mentioned when he and I were talking last night, I think they had 4 or 5 power play, 4 last night, right?
In the third period,
and
it
kind of seemed like one of the things they started to do that just wasn't working out, but they kept doing it, was to dump the puck in and chase it rather than try to carry it across the blue line and get set up that way. And it seemed like to me like Abbotsford, as the game went on last night, adjusted to that and dropped back in the mid into the offensive zone. And then as soon as you dump the puck in, you're not going to be the first person there. And then it's going to be a board battle that you have to win. And it just seems to me like they kept doing that. Again, I've not coached or played at the highest level. I'm just talking about my observation last night. It seemed like they were playing too much dump and chase on the power play for me.
Yeah, and you throw in the fact that it seemed like in the first 2 periods anyway, they couldn't win a face-off to save their lives, especially on the power play. So now all of a sudden, all right, you've got 2 minutes on a power play, you lose the face-off, and they clear it down. That kills off 10, 15 seconds. You re-enter the zone by dumping it in, like you said, and Abbotsford was wise to it, so they dropped guys back. So now all of a sudden there's a board battle, which maybe you win, maybe you don't. But at the end of the day, there's still 10, 15 seconds more is ticked off the clock while you're trying to fight that thing loose and get it out. And it just didn't seem, even when they did win the puck, they'd get it back to the point. But from there, they couldn't quite set it up because Abbotsford was so good at charging the points. The Checkers weren't able to get that puck moving around the perimeter. And when that happened, those power plays just came up empty. Out of their 4 power plays last night, I'd say maybe 1.5 of them were really good. And the other 2.5 were just kind of, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
And something you brought up that I just realized, you're right. They were, when the puck was out at the point, Abbotsford was pressuring them enough that they couldn't go D to D, so they were dropping it down along the boards. And again, now you got a board battle to get the puck.
Yeah,
exactly. Yep. Yeah.
And,
so look, and they had a long season. It was a long series. It was a physical series against Laval right before, so I'm sure these guys were tired.
Sure.
You don't have one of your top defensemen in Tobias Bjornfoot, who's got a lot of NHL experience and a lot of AHL experience. So that's kind of hurting, but there were still a lot of bright spots too. I mean, we saw once Jack Devine got reinserted in the lineup, boy, the guy was on fire. 4 points in 3 games since coming back into the lineup after, he was benched for 11 games there in the playoffs. And he's a bright spot for this team coming up. And the goal that he had last night with Eamon Powell was just beautiful.
Amazing.
I mean, it was
give and go.
Hey, ask Harry about that one because he come up. You hit that right on the head last night. You talk about that one.
Yeah, who, me?
What you saw? Yeah,
100%. So, yeah, when he passed that puck to the center, I 100% thought that was going to be the shot. Like, I'm just like, oh man, okay, he's going to take the shot, and it was a little give and go, just like in basketball, and it was literally a beautiful play. I mean, had the first guy shot it, it wouldn't have gone in. The fact that he passed it back, that's how we got that goal.
Well, the other thing that we talked about, hey, TJ, when we were talking about that goal, I said, but the key to it was when Devine brought it in the zone, he didn't shoot right away and he didn't pass right away. He held on to it for that extra second until he passed it over to Powell, kind of to draw the defenseman towards him and then get him running back over across the way.
1,000%. The patience was there. And originally, and I can remember the call. Obviously, it was just last night, but I can remember my call on it too. As they were coming in, it was originally Devine and Okuliar on the 2-on-1. Powell was like the trailer.
Yep.
So Okuliar got himself lost, which is what you want him to do. He's going to draw a defender and gets himself lost onto the side. That alleviates the back end for Devine to find Powell. Powell was patient with it, like you said. He didn't just rip it, and especially as a rookie, in the Calder Cup Finals and an elimination game, you think that, as a rookie, you're going to get it done, but he realized, I'm going to go back over to Devine. Devine even still patient with it, waited for his lane, picked his corner. I mean, it was one of the prettiest goals we've seen all season, and it just goes to show you that the future is very bright for this team.
Well, and one thing I'll kind of end it on this. Being that the Charlotte Checkers are the most successful Charlotte sports franchise at this given time, I love, and TJ, you've seen way more games there than I have, and Brian, you have too. The atmosphere at the Bowplex during the Calder Cup was incredible. I mean, it was, and there are some great hockey fans in this city.
Oh yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a quick question for you, TJ. I realize that we're 1 day into this off season. So as you look back on the season that we've had, you and I were talking, this team is just special. They were a special group of guys. You had a perfect mix of young talent with veteran leadership, and that includes the coaching staff. They're on the bench. I mean, I just felt like it was the perfect storm for these Checkers this year. But who's kind of your unsung hero of the year? And looking forward into next year, what can fans expect to see out of the Charlotte Checkers?
I think when you brought up the coaching staff, that's my unsung hero. This is a coaching staff that's, when you talk about one head coach and one assistant coach, most teams in this league are 1 and 2, one head coach with 2 assistant coaches. So what head coach Kinnear and assistant coach Sanguinetti are getting out of these guys, it's phenomenal. Last year we did have 2 assistant coaches with Jared Stahl, who ultimately left to become a head coach at the ECHL level. But I think they're the unsung heroes, getting the most out of every single one of those players, drawing up game plans that use their skill sets and what they are best at doing, and putting them in the right positions to succeed. When you can take a guy like John Leonard, who had his best career year here this season, a guy that's on an AHL only contract, I expect him to get a 2-way deal here probably relatively soon in the offseason. Kind of surprised it hasn't happened already. But when you talk about maximizing potential of guys that are, I don't want to say beyond their prime, but maybe a little bit on the older side, Trevor Carrick is another one who was 4th in the league in D points this season. By the time the regular season ended, you got to give props to the coaching staff for putting these guys in the right position, using their skill set, maximizing it out there on the ice. They're absolutely the unsung heroes. I think a lot of people like to point out, Kaapo Kähkönen, the goaltender, he was so calm and he was so good, and he was. I'm not taking that away from him, but he was only here for the second half of the year, and sure, he helped during that, the back end of the regular season and through the playoffs. But that coaching staff has been there all season long, and you got to give your props also to Sylvain Rodrigue, who is the Checkers goaltending coach, because again, you want to talk about a guy that's, I don't want to say past his prime, but he's been around a while. Ken Appleby. I mean, he's got double-digit pro hockey years under his belt now, and he had 5 shutouts, which was second most in the American Hockey League this year, behind only blue-chip goaltender Devin Levi in Rochester, who is likely to be the Buffalo Sabres' next star goaltender. So, it's one of those things where every single coach on this staff has maximized everything they could get out of their forward groups, their defensemen, their goaltenders, and they are by far the unsung heroes.
All right. And then how about the second part of his question? What can we look forward to in the season coming up?
It's a tough question, right? Because the American Hockey League, I was just talking with my dad about this, it's not like the NFL or the NHL where you can pretty much count on 90% of your guys to be back next year. Yes, guys have signed 2-year contracts. Trevor Carrick likely to be back next year. Mike Benning likely to be back next year, but you don't know who you're going to lose to your parent club. I've been saying for 2 years now that I think Justin Sordiff is going to make the Florida Panthers out of training camp. I was a little shocked that he didn't this year, but also they reloaded a little bit on their forward group, so I was more than happy to have him here in Charlotte. But I do think it's Justin Sordiff time as a bottom 6 forward with the Florida Panthers. Mike Benning is another one. Does he get a shot as a puck-moving defenseman, which the Florida Panthers sorely need, or does he need a little seasoning? So it's really tough to say who's going to be here and who's not. What I can say is this Charlotte Checkers team has made the playoffs for the last 7 years that they've been eligible, that playoffs have been held or that the team has played. And that's pretty much a given. And I don't want to, start already with jinxing them or anything like that. But you can bet that they're going to put a competitive team out there on the ice. I expect Kaapo Kähkönen to likely re-sign because especially when you consider the NHL, at the NHL level, you've got Sergei Bobrovsky, yes, but their backup goaltender situation is questionable. I think they're going to fill that role with someone who's already out there, maybe like an Alex Lyon coming back to Florida. I know that's kind of been a little bit of a rumor, but your Kaapo Kähkönen, you're okay with being an AHL number 1 if that gives you the opportunity to jump up to the NHL as a number 2 if there's an injury or something along those lines, which happens. It happens all the time. So, it's hard to say what to expect next year. I mean, in terms of fan experience, I can only expect things to get even better. I mean, the playoff crowds were so unbelievable, to Bryson's point. What an atmosphere. It just so thrilling to call a goal and hear all 8,000 people just go absolutely nuts and almost drown me out on the mic. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. And, I can tell you the fan experience is at minimum going to be as good as it was this year, but they're always looking for ways to innovate and to be new and to be fun. So you can expect that to happen. But on the ice, I can't tell you who's going to be here necessarily because you never know retirements, you never know, things like that. Who resigns, who maybe gets traded. The draft's coming up at the NHL level here in a couple days, so maybe someone's part of a draft day package or something. You know, you would have told me at the beginning of the year that Patrick Giles wouldn't be on this team at the end of the season. I would have told you you're crazy, but he was dealt at the deadline too. So it's just one of those things where you can't quite ever predict it because there's too many moving parts, but I do know they're going to be competitive no matter what.
All right. Hey, TJ, the fan experience, I want to talk to that because I think this run, I'm sure, made a bunch of new fans. And here's my experience. So I believe I went to 4 of the playoff games. 5. I was at the 2 Providence losses, and then I was at the 3 games here in the Calder Cup finals. I don't believe that in the seats in front of me or next to me, other than Harry and Monterey, who went with me, so they don't count. I don't think there was anybody that came twice that sat around me, other than the people I already knew and a couple season ticket holders that are near me. So I'm kind of hoping that we were drawing in some new fans, right? They were coming to the game and they're going to get it, and they're going to show back up and make the fan experience even better. And we'll have more attendance last year just based on them coming and then realizing this is the best live sport to go watch.
That's right. You know, and I've said that for every single day of my life, that all it takes, if you've never seen a hockey game in person, go once and you will be hooked. There's no other sport that can do that the way it is, because you don't need to understand the rules necessarily right out the gate. You don't have to really even be able to follow the puck right out the gate. You're just going to love the energy and the excitement and what's going on, and it hooks you. It's almost like an addiction. You are instantly grabbed hold of. The problem with hockey is getting that initial penetration. Like, once the people get there, they're hooked, but it's getting them there that's a problem. But when you have a team that goes as deep as the Checkers did, have an atmosphere and an environment like they do, it starts to spread. So I'm positive we made a lot of new fans thanks to this deep run. A lot of people telling their friends, like, hey, yeah, I went to the Checkers game, you know, and they beat Hershey, and I went to the Checkers game and we had a lot of fun against Laval and what have you. And I think that definitely helped. And that's kudos to the hard work of our ticketing staff and our game ops presentation crew and what they put on, because, you know, it's one thing to say, hey, I had a fun time, you should come with me next time. And if you bring a friend with you next time and you don't get that exact same experience, you're going to feel pretty crappy about bringing your friend along. So we make sure that it's a good show. And I have a feeling there's going to be some new faces next year that are going to be permanent and full-time Checkers fans.
One thing I would like to say, and I love the Checkers fans for this. They did not let number 79 for Abbotsford forget anything that happened in game 2 all the way here in game 6. Every time our boy Blaze touched the puck, he was known.
Yep. He was public enemy number 1 thanks to that game number 2, I think is the one.
It was game 2.
Yeah, he was public enemy number 1 during that game, and they let him have it. And he also, you know, rightfully so, when it was his turn to lift the cup last night, he also got the loudest ovation from the handful of Abbotsford Canucks fans that were in the area. And I also think it was from some Charlotte Checkers fans who are also kind of tipping their cap to him. And he plays a pesky style, right? You can respect it, but as I mentioned on the broadcast last night, if there's one thing I learned about Checkers fans, is that there is no such thing as a short memory with them, man. If you make a mistake, whether you're for the team or against the team, they will not let you forget it. And that goes for the officiating crew.
That's exactly right. Hey, but I want to bring up one last thing since Harry brought up Mr. Blaze. I want to bring up what happened that I saw in the handshake line. So in game 2, Justin Sordiff actually drilled him into the boards. And old Justin's a little guy, but man, he hits hard. Blaze had to go off the ice. He came back out, and he was pointing at Sordiff with his stick, like, hey, I remember you, right? I did notice last night in the handshake line, though, that the two of them had what appeared to be a pretty nice conversation for an inordinate amount of time in a handshake line for a hockey game.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this game, right, is that you can lay it all out on the line there between the whistles and in the game. And when it comes time, when a winner is settled and it's that handshake line, there's nothing but respect on both sides, you know. And I guarantee you Sammy Blais was just as frustrated that when he went in for that hit. You know, that's the thing with Justin Sordiff. He's 5'7" is what he's listed on the score sheet. I'll tell you right now, he's not 5'7". But people think that they can just tee off on him because he's a small guy. But his center of gravity is so low. He is so strong. He anchors himself down. And 9 times out of 10, when someone goes to line him up for a hit, it's the guy going in for the hit that ends up on the ice because they basically run into a wall. And that's how Justin sort of has continued to create his game and how he's gotten stronger every single year. So I'm sure Sammy Blais was a little bit embarrassed, if you will, by the fact that he went to tee off on Sortif and completely, ended up on his own backside. And I'm sure that was that mutual admiration and that handshake, just kind of like a, hey man, there's no way I thought that was going to happen. I mean, you wrecked me and I was the one coming in for the hit, and with Justin Sortif being a BC guy himself as well, I'm sure there was a little bit of mutual admiration there, and that's just the beauty of the game.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, if there's such thing as a Charlotte Rocket, it is Justin Sortif. So
guys shot out of a cannon.
All right, one more thing before we let you go, because we're running out of time here, is tell people out there where they can get season tickets or buy tickets for next season, because you need to be out at the Biscuit.
That's right. Season tickets are available right now, charlottecheckers.com. Tickets start at just $612, and that gets you one seat for all 36 games. And we also have a no-interest payment plan as well, starting at just $62. Some of you math geniuses out there will be like, wait a minute, 612 divided by 12 is not 62. No, it's because it just runs for the months that we play hockey. So it'll run from October to April. So it's just a 6-month run there. But you can head to charlottecheckers.com to start researching where you want to sit. The nice part about that is you get your same seat every single game. As you well know, Brian, you get to know other season ticket holders in your section, in your row, because you're seeing them every single game. You get to build up a little bit of a camaraderie. I can think too, in section 108, there's a bunch of fans who have a nice little block there. They call themselves the 108ers. They have their own little banner that they hang in front of their section, and there are a bunch of nutcases there that have a lot of fun, and that's the kind of brotherhood and the camaraderie that you get with your fellow fans. So that's just one of the many, many benefits of being a season ticket holder. You get some discounts on merch, discounts on food at the Red Line Club and throughout concession stands. Plus, you get one free video board announcement per year to use on a birthday or an anniversary or what have you. So there's certainly a lot of benefits, and for $612 for 36 games, that's not too shabby to get you to every single Checkers game next year.
Well, TJ, we want to really thank you for helping us out this year, calling into the sports recap and, helping us along, explore the Charlotte Checkers and just learn about hockey and hopefully spread hockey here in the Charlotte metro area.
That's all we want to do. Thanks so much for having us. You guys are instrumental in helping us get our reach out there and hopefully bring some new fans, as you mentioned. And we can only hope that next year there's a bunch of people walking around the concourse going, I first heard of the Checkers because I was listening on the sports recap on WAME, and I heard those guys talking about it. So hopefully we can run into a few of those fans, and maybe we made some new ones for next year.
Well, TJ, I'll tell you, I know we got some notoriety being on the Sirius XM broadcast for the Calder Cup. I know they heard us talking, and people are going to start asking questions. But on another note, TJ, we will have to get you up here soon, because before long, we're going to be talking about preseason camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. And my God, we know a couple of Eagles fans, and I mean, listen, they're going to be pretty good.
I sure hope so. And if there's one thing I can leave you with to round this out so nicely, my fiance is sitting next to me. She's going to love this. Go Birds.
Thank you, TJ.
Thanks, buddy.
See you guys.
Again, that was TJ Shalott, voice of the Charlotte Checkers, giving us the season recap for the Checkers as they fall in the Calder Cup to Abbotsford, 4-2 and Game 6 at home. But listen, the 2019 Calder Cup champs had a chance to get it back here in Charlotte this year. Something tells me the Czechs will be back.
And something tells me there'll be more fans at the games next year.
Good chance,
which is what we really want to see.
That's
right?
it.
Like I said, that if you're a Charlotte sports guy, they are the most successful team in Charlotte right now. And to me, there's no better game experience than a Charlotte Checkers game.
No.
Charlotte FC, a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
The Checkers games are second to none in the Queen City.
So hopefully we'll see y'all out there next year at the Bowplex. It's been a fun hour and 7 minutes here on the Sports Recap. Me and the menu, Harry and Bryson, the engineer, have brought the fun, fast, fact-packed hour.
Fun, fast, fact-filled.
Hour to you. So we will be back next week at 7:00. We'll talk some more sports here on WAME.
Real Country is 550 AM WAME, 92.9 W225BD, Statesville.